Once the war is over and the freedmen are able to start working towards their own freedom and liberation, it's important to remember that the newly freed population is free, but they're not going to be considered equal. Even up in the northern sections, right? Racism is still alive and well. It just doesn't go away because the war is done. So they're freed, but they're not equal. Even when they are going to get political equality, there's going to be a very severe movement trying to restrict their rights. The emancipated populations are going to be facing white vigilante violence. Things like the groups like the KKK. Here in South Carolina, there were the red shirts. There's going to be these types of organizations all over the South, and it's going to bleed a bit up into the North later on. But that vigilante violence was designed to try to create a subservient class in the South of the Black population. They're also trying to restrict Republicans from voting, those white Northerners that are coming to come down as well. But in the face of this, what's interesting is that the Black population was determined to stay mostly around where they had always been. They didn't want to leave the lands where their ancestors had been enslaved. They wanted to stay here, make it work. The only exception is the Exodusters. This is a group of African Americans that moved out to the West to try to start over. In the South, the emancipated slaves, the emancipated enslaved people had saw that their theory of religion was correct. Emancipation proved that God was on their side, and there's this wellspring of religious fervor that comes out of emancipation. The AME Church grows, the Methodist Church grows in the ranks of the African Americans becoming members. African Americans saw education as the first freedom. So they built schools. They wanted to become more educated because that had been denied to them while they were enslaved. They're going to elect over 600 Black representatives. Now, the Southerners are going to scream and cry that they're illiterate and corrupt, and that's not really true. A lot of modern historians have shown that the people that got elected tended to be people that were educated, ministers, artisans, freed Black people that had come from the North. These elected officials were they were not the illiterate stereotype that was being portrayed in the South, which was only being portrayed because they wanted to try to show why it was such an evil that they were being, Black people had political votes now. Now, the last thing is this idea of sharecropping. Sharecropping emerges partially because Johnson and is part of his plan allowed the wealthy white people with a lot of land to come back into and become part of the country again. And because they couldn't have their property taken away without due process, they lost the enslaved population, but the land was not able to be taken away. So there was no redistribution. There is no ability for the freed population to get 40 acres and a mule, as some might say. That never happened. What ends up happening instead is this thing called sharecropping, where people had to share their crop in order to pay their bills. We'll talk about it some other time.